Welcome to the Queer Witch Project, your resource for all things queer and witchy. I am Damona Peacock, a fabulous, non-binary, neurospicy, ordained queerdo with a fascination for all things cycles, symbolism, and patterns.
And I'm Moonkittee, your queer femme, poly kitchen witch, and proud keep. Today's topic is witchy old wives' tales.
Ooh, I like this one.
Yeah, this one's a fun one. And I know we're getting into spoopy season here, or as one of my favorite YouTubers like to say, crunchy spicy leaf season.
Oh, spicy leaves, huh?
Yeah, crunchy spicy leaf season.
Or some people will call it PSL season.
And we've got whole episodes on PSLs and all of those in
We
the past you
do.
can check out. But no, we are making our way into fall. We're heading towards Samhain. All of these things, we thought it'd be a fabulous time to start talking about some of our favorite witchy old wives' tales.
So first of all, what is an old wives' tale?
So an old wives' tale is a traditional belief or superstition that's not necessarily based on fact or science, but it's considered passed on advice. Usually, and I'm being a little bit stereotypical or gender typical here, usually from one older female generation to a younger female generation, hence the old wives portion of the old wives' tale, oftentimes used for helping the next generation understand life and some of the things that happen to as you grow old and married.
Yeah, and they're not always accurate. Like
No.
that's what we not always based on scientific fact. Like I like to think of it as the shit that your mother and grandmother scared you with to get you to do what they wanted.
Sort of, or tried to prepare you for something. Like I said, there's
Yeah,
there's a little bit of the superstition also that can
right.
kind of fall under old wives' tales, and it's kind of the way of like bisexual and pansexual are the same, but they're different. So old wives' tales and superstitions are not exactly the same, but there's some crossover between the
Fair.
two, if that makes any sense.
Well, give me an example of just like a classic old wives' tale that you remember hearing as a kid.
The biggest one I remember hearing as a kid all the time was don't swim after eating because you're going to get cramps and you're going to drown.
I hate that one. What kid wants to get out of the pool and eat a snack anyway?
And
And then you
then
did
wait
make me
an
sit and
hour.
wait to go, not based in scientific fact, go swim.
No, again, like the idea is behind that old wives' tale is the blood is going to go, all the blood in your body is going to go straight to digestion. It's not going to go anywhere else in your body. And therefore, you're going to get cramps and your cramp is going to lock up and you're going to drown. It's, it's silly. There is no scientific fact or anything else in there. But yes, that's the first one. Another one. So this is what I think I might have heard in a story, but it still stuck with me. And that's starve a fever, feed a cold. And the idea and thought process behind that one is digestion. But
There's a lot of
again,
wives' tales about eating.
yes, like the blood going to the digestion and the swimming, blood goes to digestion when you are feeding it. So therefore, your body temperature rises. And so if you have a fever, you don't want your body temperature to rise anymore. So
So you
you
don't
eat.
eat.
So you don't eat, you starve that. Whereas if you have a cold, your body needs those nutrients and those things, so you want to feed it. So
Mm.
starve a fever, feed a cold. That was another
That
old
might be
wives'
good
tale.
advice. Well, speaking of wives' tales around eating, what about the old wives' tale that you have to eat a bunch of carrots for good eyesight? Have you ever heard of that
Right.
one?
Oh yeah.
The best little fact I have about this old wives' tales, like sure, carrots have good vitamins and
Oh right.
vitamin B, whatever. Yeah, but like it was World War II war propaganda. So they had newer technology like radars and could see things better. And the British didn't want the enemies knowing that's how they're able to see so well.
hmm
So they started this propaganda of like, our troops eat tons of carrots. That's why we have such great eyesight. And and that just became myth and legend now. And eat your
Right?
carrots so you have good eyesight. That was definitely
Yes.
something I was told as a kid.
That's a great one. Going outside with wet hair will make you catch a cold.
Do you know what makes people catch colds?
Germs?
Germs. Yeah.
Right.
Not wet hair.
Not wet hair. Do you know how many times I went out with wet hair or went to sleep with wet hair? I still do. I actually prefer to go to
Yeah.
sleep with wet hair because my hair stays curlier that way.
When it's hot outside, sometimes I like to go outside, wash my hair before I'm going outside in the heat, just so I can
hmm
stay cooler longer. Going outside barefoot in the rain would
Mm,
help make you catch your cold. And I'm
right.
like, no. No, I'm gonna go stomp rain petals and I don't want my sneakers soaked.
Exactly. I love it. Yeah, same thing. There's no scientific evidence in any
Yeah.
way, shape, or form if you go outside with wet hair or you sleep or you jump in puddles that it's going to make you catch a cold. What's going to make you catch a cold are the germs and viruses that make you catch colds. Bacteria and viruses tend to thrive in cooler, damp conditions, which I guess you could see where that would be, but there's plenty of bacteria that thrive in warm conditions too. And as long as you're
Hmm.
washing your
Hmm.
hands and taking general safety precautions, then you're no more likely to catch a cold with wet hair than you are with dry.
Yeah, and sometimes colds just get caught. The moral of the story from these new old biddies is that be feral and dodge germs.
Right. Let's do a couple more. How about saying bless you when people sneeze?
Yeah, I was asked why we do that as a kid, and I was told like they used to believe like the devil left your body or your soul left your body when you sneezed, and so you're blessing them so that like a demon doesn't get in or something like that.
That's funny because I heard something completely different with regards to it, which made me think this is more superstition than true old wives' tale. But again, it's that crossover. And what I heard was growing up, the reason we say bless you is because sneezing was one of the symptoms of the bubonic plague. So when the
Oh,
plague was ravaging the Dark Ages and everything else, if you started sneezing, that was one of the symptoms that you potentially had the plague. So they were blessing you. So when you died, your body and soul would go to heaven. So it's probably a little bit of both, and it could be a little bit of both as transitions have changed throughout the years. But that's a really fun example of a old wives' tale that has multiple starting points, but still came
uh-huh.
down to the same end
Yep.
point.
So what about if your ears are ringing, somebody's talking about you?
Mm.
I definitely don't have proof that that's right or wrong
I
because you don't
know.
really know.
True. I mean, I know people get tinnitus, and if I'm going to a loud concert or something else, your ears are going to ring afterward. And that's probably because you're at a loud conference or concert, and someone talking about me behind my back at midnight on a random Friday, right?
All right, so this is one that I remember growing up, my mom was really big on this one.
Hmm.
But if we ever saw like news, a celebrity had died or somebody well known had died, or even in the family of somebody, one or two people have died, my mom was like, well, I wonder who the third one will be. And like her fast
Hmm.
rules was all of these things happen in threes. Everything happens in threes, but particularly deaths. Deaths
Yes.
happen in threes.
I have also heard that one, and I tend to think of that, especially when they have celebrity ones. I think of that as well, and it's probably confirmation bias, but you do see that a lot. It's like when I think of the year that that David Bowie passed on, and then Carrie Fisher, and then another one. It's like who else was there? And I can't remember if like Prince did
Hmm.
earlier in that year too, or something else. It was like these
Yeah.
major things, like oh my God, what? Who's the third death? And when you hear the second, it's like okay, who's the third? But it's also
Yeah.
about bad things, but good things. Definitely heard that everything happens in threes,
Everything
and
happens in threes.
as witchy folk, there's a whole
Right.
Wiccan read about that.
Hmm. I was gonna say, yeah, and as a numerologist, that's very appeasing to me and for certain reasons,
Right,
which you could go to our numerology episode and learn more about threes.
right.
So, yes,
Exactly.
everything, all the topics come back around for reasons. It's layers.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Um,
speaking of witchy, because that last one really does kind of tie into the witchy thing,
it
what are some
does.
specifically witchy old wives' tales? We
Okay.
talked about the regular
Now,
ones that are kind of just general old wives' tales. What about those witchy ones?
I feel like there are a lot of witchy ones. Been in paganism for 3 decades now.
Yes.
If your palm itches, that
Hmm.
you're gonna receive some money. Like especially, I think it's like your left palm itches, you're gonna
Yes.
receive money. So I was like, oh, good, I'm itchy.
Right. And no, I love that one. Left palm itching, money coming in. And that was one that my paternal grandmother, a little Italian lady who taught me to make sauce, that was one that she always
Right.
said. And that was
Yep.
had nothing to do with it with any sort of witching else, but it was the thing, it's like your left palm is itching, money's coming in. I always then it kind of over the years kind of changed to left palm itching, money coming in, right palm itching, money going out. And if you think, and to me that ties back into the witchy nature and kinetic nature of energy, because energy flows
Hmm.
tends to flow in from the left and go out through the right if you are right-handed. If you're right-handed, the left energy is the pulling in, the right is the giving out because it's your dominant hand. I know it might be reversed for you or not. So now you're left hand dominant. So that's where for me the left hand itching coming in right hand going out. That makes sense with
That makes a lot of sense because when I was taught about energy flow,
Mhm,
especially within rituals, especially within public rituals, I was always taught that you run energy DSL or clockwise,
mhm.
which would be like you're standing in a circle with people and their energy is coming at you from the left and you're moving it through you to on to the right.
Let's jump into that one if we're talking
Yeah.
about how you
Well,
cast circles and stuff.
Well, that was such a big topic. The person that trained me because, she was really big on like if you have to get up in the middle of a ritual, don't move. If you have to go, reposition somewhere and you're repositioning two people to your right, you're going to walk all the way around clockwise the circle and get to that point. So she was very big on like you have to run the energy in this direction. And it was like you're imposing an order on the
Hmm.
energy. And then because she told me that if you ever get into circle with people who run energy, DSL,
Hmm.
or Widdershins rather,
Widdershins.
which is counterclockwise, is that it's because they run chaos energy.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know how accurate that is, and
Hmm.
I definitely have met a group of witches who specifically, purposefully, intentionally run their energy counterclockwise. And it is not for me to judge what is right and what is wrong,
Hmm.
but I was just definitely told that clockwise energy is order and Widdershin's energy, counterclockwise energy is chaos.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't have the coven experience, but thinking back to the books that I've read on high magic and formal magic training, I tend to think of as I'm like casting corners. No, I tend to cast an across, but if you're calling
Oh, that's
corners and
different
calling things
too.
around, it tends to call clockwise for high magic
Yes.
principles. So you'll start either north or east, depending, and then go
There was also a lot of discussion as to whether we start in the north or we start in the east.
depending on the magic that you're doing, whether you're doing
Interesting.
something that's more fire magic or creative magic, do something that would start in the east because that's with the rising of the sun, versus if you're doing
Hmm.
something with protection or grounding the earth
I
element.
like that there's you or have either learned or thought out some logic attached to this because I was basically told, well, this is our tradition. This is our tradition's way of doing it. Oh,
Hmm.
okay. But
And
then other
like,
traditions do it other ways. So
right, absolutely. But I also again learned that casting the circle in a clockwise direction to cast a circle and Widdershins
counterclockwise
counterclockwise
to
to open the circle and let it go. But I don't think one's inherently, I've done it both ways in my practice and I haven't done it
hmm
one way or another. To me, it's the difference of a merry-go-round and a carousel. One goes
hmm
counterclockwise, one goes clockwise. But what is that's
I
literally the
didn't
difference.
know that either.
Yeah, no, that's the difference between a merry-go-round and a carousel is one spins clockwise and one spins counterclockwise. It's the only
I did
difference.
not know that.
It's a matter of what you're
That's
doing,
cool.
what you're doing, which way works best for you. And I can especially see if you
And
are,
of
say,
course,
left
being a
hand.
lefty, yeah,
Yeah, I can see if you're
everything,
left hand dominant or something like that, it would make more sense to cast the other
yeah,
direction. But it's
hmm
really funny that, again, tradition becomes that we have to do it this way, and you tend to
yeah,
forget the whys. So that's the
yeah.
old wives' tale aspect of that. But I know, side tangent, but it kind of worked. But back to some of these other witchy old wives' tales.
Okay,
Um,
breaking a mirror,
oh, yeah.
7 years bad
7 years
luck,
bad luck.
or spilling salt is bad luck. And in
Hmm.
order to counterbalance that, you're supposed to take whatever salt you spilled and throw it over your left shoulder.
Left shoulder. Hmm.
Yep.
Knock on wood. Always growing up was the knock on wood. Knock on wood. I'm almost knock
Yeah,
on wood.
yeah.
Knock
I
out
mean,
that bad
I
energy, the bed stew.
literally still do it.
To this day, constantly, it's like yeah, you say something. Hey, it's been really nice. So like someone else, you better freaking knock on some wood.
Yeah, yeah.
So there were a couple other ones that we've thought of when we were kind of planning this session, which I thought were very fun, and they both have kind of the nursery rhyme aspect of it, of the witchy old wives' tale. Did you want to talk about yours first, then I'll go into the one that I knew?
Okay, so for me, there was this one I learned because of a song. Before it was a song, it was a poem, an old wives' tale, and it has to do with magpies. Like how many magpies you see, there can be a hidden message or meaning in that. So the
Hmm.
poem is one for sorrow, two for joy, three for a girl, and four for a boy, five for silver, six for gold, seven for a secret never told. And it
Hmm.
just appealed to my, first of all, the inner bird in me that loves birds, and
Mm-hmm.
also the numerologist in me.
Right. And I probably had, again, that based in superstition of the time
Hmm.
with magpies in the Middle Ages, Dark Ages, early Renaissance period that would potentially
Yeah, that,
portend the number of fortune. That's
and
cool.
they're also kind of mischievous spirits, so
Oh,
I just
yeah.
love them. Yeah. I
No,
have
the
magpie disease. Ooh,
we,
shiny.
oh yeah, that's what my mom says too. We have magpies. I said I
Yeah,
have dragon. But there's a lot of magpie
same
in
thing.
dragon. But the same thing with ooh, shiny. I like the
Shiny.
shinies.
So what was your little poem that you remember growing up?
So mine had to do with the days of the week
Oh,
and
okay.
what day of the week you were born on, how that would affect your overall life path. And that was
Mm-hmm.
Monday's child is fair of face, Tuesday's child is full of grace, Wednesday's child is full of woe, Thursday's child has far to go, Friday's child is loving and giving, Saturday's child works hard for a living. But the child that is born on the Sabbath day is bonny, blithe, good, and gay. Gay meaning happy in this particular.
I remember this poem specifically because I'm a Wednesday baby and a Cancerian, of course. So you know
Mhm.
we cry, right? But anytime as a kid I would be crying, my mom would be like, "Oh, Wednesday's child, so full of woe." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm not from the Addams family." Wednesday.
Wednesday, I love it. No, I actually I was Monday's child, which I think was
Mm,
hysterical in that sense. So, but Monday also for me the bigger sense is Monday is Moon Day, as I am Moonkittee, but also I was born under a full moon. So if that doesn't
uh-huh.
all kind of make sense for my Monday.
One more witchy wives' tale type thing that I would
Hmm.
love to talk about, and it
Please.
has to do with our witch's broom.
Oh, yeah.
So there was one when I was just looking up, like, okay, what I know I've heard a lot of these old
Hmm.
wives' tales, but like, what are ones that I haven't heard of? And
Right.
somebody said that when you're moving out of a house, that you're leaving behind the energy of that house, leave your broom. Don't take your broom
Mm.
with you. Go buy a new broom for your new dwelling. And that way you leave behind any energy associated with that entire house that you've been cleaning with that broom for however long you lived there. Which reminds me of the tradition of jumping the broom, like
Hmm.
it's a hand fasting tradition, or a wedding tradition
Hmm.
where the bride and groom and or bride and bride and or the groom and groom or people who are
Happy
being wed,
couple.
the happy couple, thank you. The happy couple at the after being married, nearing the end of their ceremony, one of the things we'll do is we'll lay a groom down, because we're not trying to take them out by their shins,
Hmm.
down on the ground, and the couple will jump over it, and then me, the officiant,
Hmm.
will pick the broom up, and you just kind of like energetically sweep away anything before this union. So like their past is cleaned,
Hmm.
cleansed, and swept clear. So any of the energy from the past, and now you move forward with your partnership, with your union. So yeah, I just love that. I just felt like that was very witchy, to talk about like the
Oh,
energy of
yeah,
brooms.
absolutely. I mean, that could be its own topic too, broom magic. So we've talked general old wives' tales. We've talked witchy old wives' tales. So now let's talk about some queer old wives' tales. And we're going to do queer with a modern twist because as non-heterosexual people have been around for millennia, right? But it's really only been in the last few decades that we've had terminology and
Or
it's
very
been,
open
yeah, open
and
enough to be
yeah,
addressed in a
yeah.
way that wasn't condescending.
We also have like open access to queer culture in
Hmm.
ways that we didn't have before the internet.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you for clarifying
Yep.
that.
But
Old
now we can
wives'
talk
tales.
about it.
We can talk about it now.
One of my absolute favorites that I feel like would fall under the queer old wives'
Hmm.
tales is that bisexuals can't sit in a chair properly.
Oh, right.
So you always see like the gays are like, lounging in a chair across it instead of sitting properly. Yeah. It just honestly, this one rings true for a lot of people that I
Right, and
know.
that's what I'm saying. This is where these old wives' tales. I'm not sure if they're just right now kind of general stereotypes that are on their way to becoming wives' tales. Because as a bisexual person, even before I knew that I was bisexual, I was constantly sitting in chairs sideways or backwards, and I still to this day can. If I'm sitting on a couch, I have to sit sideways on a couch with one leg tucked underneath me. I
Uh-huh.
can't just
I tuck the leg
sit.
sometimes. Yeah, yep.
I'm
That's
constantly
very,
sitting slightly offboard.
very queer of you.
Very queer of me. And again, long before I even identified or knew it. But
Mm-hmm.
speaking of bisexuals, and I have a feeling there's going to be a few of them out here, not only that pansexuals are just confused, we don't know which way we're going, which is not true, or
Yeah.
that pansexuals are actually just velociraptors in disguise. And again, the idea behind that is, again, if we're just confused, it's because if we end up marrying or partnering up with a woman, we were just a lesbian. And if we end up partnering with a masculine side, we were just straight, that we don't actually know our own minds of what it is. We can't actually be attracted to both. So therefore,
I've
we're just
had
confused. And the other is like, hey, if we're attracted to both men and women, it just means everyone's prey. And that's where the velociraptor aspect comes in.
Oh,
We're just
okay.
prey. Everything's prey.
Wow. I've heard somebody say that I'm not confused, I'm just greedy. I was going to say selfish, but I think it's greedy is what they'd say. I'm not confused, I'm just greedy. I
Right.
want it all.
And there's a lot of being queer in the sense and being bisexual. You are attracted to women, but you can't actually talk to them. So you end up defaulting to guys because they're easier.
Yeah, there's a phrase that we use a lot called compulsory heterosexuality.
Mm.
So, like, we were taught, we were programmed to be heterosexual. We were programmed that we're supposed to desire the male gaze, desire, a heterosexual coupling so that we can, I don't know, have kids or whatever. There's a lot of people who later in life come out as gay in one way or another because they were trying to do what they were told instead of be who they are. Which,
Right.
don't we all struggle with that? But yeah,
Yes.
compulsory heteronormativity or something. There's like a whole phrase around that.
That makes sense. Another fun one is if you like show tunes, you must be gay.
So I have seen like gay TikTokers say they're bad gays because they don't like show tunes, but they're very rare. They're few and far between.
There are straight people in musical theater. There really
that's
truly
true.
are.
Sure. Are you sure? You sure they're not just figuring themselves out still? Maybe it's just a phase.
Maybe it's just a phase. Okay, those are funny ones, but there are some more serious ones too that kind of fall into potentially harmful, potentially derogatory in a sense.
Yeah, vilifying.
Yeah.
Like gay is contagious, so I don't want my
Yes.
kids playing with those gay or like gay dads to adopt kids because then the kids are going to catch the gay.
Right. Exactly.
But like I went to school with so many straight kids and I never caught they're straight. So
Right? Somehow that works. Or queerness is just a phase. So everyone's
Right.
everyone's a little queer and then you grow out of it. No, not necessarily. Gayness is not a phase. Queerness is not a phase. Just like straightness is not a phase. You don't grow out of being straight. If you're inherently straight, you're not going to grow out of being queer if you are inherently queer.
I hate the idea of using, oh, it's just a phase to dismiss somebody who's expressing their identity.
Right?
Like even if it is a phase, just let it be. Let it be what it is.
That
Everybody
phase,
grows and changes. Yeah.
exactly. That phase is going to help them progress into the next stage of who they're going to be as a human.
Yeah. So we don't dismiss teenagers by using the phrase, it's just a phase.
Exactly.
And then here's the really big one that is problematic that I wanted to talk about. And the idea that if you are queer in some way, specifically if you are genderqueer in any way, that you are then going to victimize somebody. Like that you're going to be using bathrooms specifically to, I don't even know. The bathroom law thing makes me angry. It's a terrible fear mongering is what it is.
Absolutely.
Just because somebody is different or outside of the norm of the overculture, that they are somehow then looking to victimize other people. And I'd like to say that the facts show that more often than not is not the ones that are doing the majority of victimizing.
If anything, it's the other way around because most queer people have been victimized, have been bullied, have been dealing with some sort of aspect of that, and the last thing they want
to use a public toilet,
right, and the last thing they want to do is turn that on to an innocent child because they remember being that child. The people who are more likely to victimize are not those who are queer. Now again, there's always exceptions, unfortunately, to any rule, but your average queer person is going to be far more likely to protect a child in a situation like that than to try to take advantage of them. And it's
so
really
I just
sad
want
and scary.
people to recognize that is the propaganda that is the fear mongering that is, because it's very rare for there to be proof in the real world that that's actually a problem.
Exactly. And that's where that idea, it ties back to the idea of the old wives' tale and why we wanted to bring that up. It's not an old wives' tale in this case. Right now it's a modern wives' tale, if anything, because we're seeing it played out in the fear public arena, the fear mongering politics. Like you said, recording this episode in 2024, and this episode is going to be releasing before a very contentious political fight for the presidency. And I'm hoping that 2 years in the future won't have to have things like this, but there's a whole lot of things that's really relevant to what's happening right now. And it's terrifying.
Good to be aware.
It's a very terrifying political landscape right now if you are queer.
Yeah, so I think that the ultimate like takeaway from this entire episode is just because historically it's been said a billion times doesn't necessarily mean that it is true or
Right.
based in scientific fact.
At all.
And please do your research and think
Yes.
for yourself.
Right. And take those things that you hear with a grain of salt. Do
Yeah.
your research, look and see, listen to experts, listen to people. And if it doesn't quite make sense, then you don't have to pay attention to it.
As a spiritual person, a lot of people would assume that I'm a believer, and in some ways I am, but I am
Hmm.
also a skeptic in
Oh, yeah.
so many ways, and I think we need a healthy balance of both.
Absolutely.
I think
Oh,
that pretty much covers,
yeah, I think we've got a good portion of everything there. So,
yeah.
with that, what are your favorite old wives' tales that you grew up listening to? We'd love to hear about
Ooh,
them. Drop them in the chat, in comments, send us an email. Like I said, all of that information's coming up. But yeah, we'd love to hear what your favorite old wives' tales are.
yeah. So thank you for listening to the Queer Witch Project. If you like what you hear, leave us a comment, give us a like, some stars, a follow, subscriptions. We love your support.
And if there is a topic you want to know more about or an episode topic you'd like to suggest, please contact us at thequeerwitchproject@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram with the handle @queerwitchproject. We upload every other week. And remember, queerness is a key to magic.
Be yourself and love rebelliously.
Bye!
Yay! Bye!